The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to the Angry Chicken, the podcast all about Hearthstone. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. I'm joined as always by Billy Dills Gregory and Jocelyn Moffat. And we're 3 weeks away from the 300th episode. Count 'em.
Weird.
Exciting times.
Yeah. Yep. And Dills, when's your birthday? Because I know ours are really close.
February 4th. It'll be a Monday.
February 4th. Okay, yeah. So we'll both be 1 year older by the time we hit the 300th episode. Because if we keep our course,
technically be the 5th, huh? Okay.
Yeah, if we keep on course, and I have a wooden desk, so I'm going to knock on wood, and don't get horribly ill, like all three of us at the same time, so we don't have to skip a random episode. Our 300th episode will be taking place on February 5th.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll be here.
Sweet. It's going to be a good time. We have nothing planned, by the way.
We have nothing.
It will probably be a normal episode.
Literally nothing.
Yeah. There's one thing. It's in motion, but I'm not allowed to say anything about it. And it may not hit that date. So
Yeah.
that's all I can
If it
say.
doesn't, then what?
That's all right. It'll come on 301 or 302. It'll still happen, just not on a round number that most folks get all excited about. Increments of 100.
Numbers, man, they're sweet.
Increments of 100 are very exciting in podcasting. Even though our
Yeah. I mean, look, 300 there's a lot of shows that don't make it that far, right? So
this
I think it's still a big deal.
this is my first show that did make it that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the instance 200, I still wasn't on the show, and then I joined on like 217, and then when we got to 300, Scott was like, I don't care anymore, man. What do you want me to do? We're going to do then 400 and then 500. You know, what's Coverville on at this point?
I think he's over 1,000, isn't he?
He's got to be. He's working on.
I feel like I remember like the 1,000th episode of Coverville.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think it might be over 9,000. Yeah, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there, folks. Maybe we should just screw with everybody, and on the 5th we just post it's over. We didn't make it. Sorry. Just its own episode.
Coverville 1,247 happened on January 9th.
Wow.
Good God, that's so many episodes of a podcast.
You gotta be out of covers at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Morning stream
Cover's
must
songs
be
left
pretty
in the
high
world.
too, because they do 4 a week plus PM.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
True Villain Manny in the chat room says confirmed the Angry Chicken gets to reveal an entire expansion on episode 300.
Oh, there you go.
That's no.
this is not confirmed.
Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. I'll tell you what we can announce. We can announce another taco is coming.
That's right.
Getting out ahead of this one. Going to be going down on February 9th. So once we're done nursing our 4-day hangover from celebrating the 300th episode, we'll be getting together and hosting another Angriest Chicken Open. And we're doing something different this time. What's going on with the format, Dills?
Well, the format is undecided as of now because if you are a patron of this show, you get to decide what the format will be for the next taco. We're going to post a poll. In fact, I believe it's already up, right?
It's up. Yep.
It's already up. So if you are a patron, you can see it, you can vote on it, and you can decide exactly what you want to see us do for the Angry Chicken Open, which we've basically only ever done. I think we did last Hero Standing maybe once or something, but it's basically always just been a Conquest standard.
I think there was one that was wild once, wasn't there?
No, I don't think we did a wild taco.
Oh, I thought we did a
we
wild
maybe
one.
discussed it. I don't think it ever actually happened. But this one there, if you want to see a wild taco, you can make that happen because that is an option in there. So go ahead and check it out and vote. And if you want to play in it and aren't a patron, become a patron and you'll be able to vote as well. And then you can play in it. So there you go.
Indeed. I mean, it eventually goes open to everyone. But if you want first dibs and you want to vote on the format, and you also want other perks like being able to drop questions. You get to cut the line for questions. You know, you don't go to the inbox. You can just go straight to the Discord or ask us directly on Patreon itself. So all kinds of perks like that. Check it out. Patreon.com/GAC. Plus you get to support the show. That's great. Why wouldn't you?
Get to make us get to 400 episodes.
Yes. Yes. Please.
Ha! Midnight Bomber in the chat room is saying I'm
There
right.
was one
there was one wild taco.
Sweet.
This is why we need an Angry Chicken wiki. Like, if someone wants to head that up, that isn't me, please. Because I don't remember. We've been doing this too long. I don't remember. I don't even remember. Was this our original cast? I'm pretty sure there was someone else at some point. Like, I don't even know. I don't know. It was Mosselin and Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Those were our
Bills.
Bills. And Derek. Ugh, Derek.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Fired him immediately.
I could also run through the other names that people always write down instead of Garrett when I place an order over the phone. Jared, I get that a lot.
Ooh.
Yeah. Gary.
Gareth.
Like, no.
You get Gareth?
Oh, Gareth, yeah. I have never met anyone named Gareth. I'm convinced it's a fake name.
No, he was a character in Walking Dead. He was one of the Terminus guys. He was the main Terminus guy. And then Rick murdered him with a samurai sword or something.
Spoilers.
Look, if you're not up to Terminus at this
4
point,
years ago on the show. I think I can spoil it at this point.
if you're not up to Terminus right now, we can't help you. We can't help you. Spoiler alert. The finale to the whole Negan thing was really boring. I finally saw it.
I haven't seen it yet.
There's not a finale to the Negan thing.
There is.
There's more to the Negan story.
Oh, man, I'm not sure I want to see it, though, is my point.
If you read the comics, there's a lot more.
Oh, I was so bored.
There's so many more things to come.
I was so
this
bored.
last season has been the best season they've had in a long time.
I like the first season with Negan was, I think, a high point for the show, and then it's kind of petered off for me since.
It was fun, yeah. But no, this last season it was back to like a horror show. Oh man, so good. It made me go back and watch the first episodes. Total digression, by the way. Maybe go back and watch the first episodes in season 1. I was like, man, remember when the walkers were scary?
Yeah.
That's where we're at again.
I can't do that because the like quality of like the first 4 episodes is so much higher than anything else they've ever done on the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's just shot so beautifully.
It's crazy. Except for the CGI, which is something they've never done good.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Happy Walker. And maybe you'll hear more of it in coming episodes when we get off topic. But anyway, there you go. Taco, the next Angriest Chicken Open, going to be happening February 9th. You can vote on the next format over on our Patreon. But what else has been going on in Hearthstone for you guys in the past week? Dills, I'm going to answer my own question. Dills, you and I had a really fun stream last week after the show. I was I actually had a quiet night. I was just like sitting on my computer watching you stream. And I was chatting in your chat room, and you were like, "Let's play." And I had that itch, man. I had that itch you get sometimes for a deck that you ignore for almost a year. And this time it was Even Shaman, and we went on a tear.
Yeah, no, Even Shaman is it's in a really good spot. It's funny because you watch we'll talk a little bit more about the HCT. There's so much control going on in the game right now that when you just play a good old fashioned put stats on the board deck, you just run those sons of bitches over. Like they're like, I'm gonna combo you when we get to turn 9. All of a sudden they turn into Millhouse Mana Storm. Just wait till I get 10 mana. It's not gonna happen. You're gonna be dead by that point. So
yeah, and then I'm just sitting here like, get off my lawn. Did you forget about curves?
Yeah. It was it was good. I think, did we lose any games? I don't think we did we?
We lost 1. I believe we ended 9-1 with a 90% win rate.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
That'll get you climbing.
Yeah, it was a good day. And we misplayed multiple times because
definitely. I mean, when you're playing together, it's good because you talk about a lot of stuff, but you also rope out and then end up doing the like freak out. I don't know what I'm going to do at all because we talked about 10 different options. And so
I think there was one play with a knife juggler where we clearly misplayed, but because of where the juggles went, it ended up being the most optimal play we possibly could have hoped for.
Yeah. Sometimes the juggler plays it for you, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's anybody who's looking for something to climb with, yeah, definitely. Even Sean, it's not the deck we're going to talk about this week because it's, what do you talk about? Put your stuff on the board and go. but it works.
The 2-mana elemental +2/+2 buff spell.
The Nimbus and the Earthen Might, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
you use that as early as you can. Don't aim for elementals. It doesn't matter. Put it on.
Oh yeah, no, play a totem on 1 and then Earthen Might it on 2, and then you're ahead.
Yep.
You know,
it's so gnarly. It's
and then
so gnarly.
heal somebody on 3 and drop a new totem. It's just it's like you just snowball out of control from there. It's the tools in that deck are pretty disgusting.
It's good.
And then you're just dropping 8/8s for like 1, and you're like, oh yeah, you have to tap to drop 8/8s. No, I don't have to lose life to get my 8/8s out.
And as you mentioned, there's just so many decks running right now where you're like, they don't actually have an easy way to deal with this unless they just want to sack their board or get rid of their combo.
Sure. Yeah, no, they can't do the game plan that they want to do, right? Which is draw cards and bide their time. They have to just be reactive the entire time.
Yeah.
You're just putting the pressure on.
Yep. Which is why I think
I actually used Even Shaman as one of my decks in the first match of Dill's Hearthstone League this week. I was like thinking about, should I bring all these fun, cool combo control decks? And I was like, I'll just bring 4 aggro decks. And yeah, it worked pretty well for me. I brought the new mid-range Secret Hunter thing that was very popular at HCT. I brought Odd Rogue, Odd Paladin, and Even Shaman. So yeah, taking full advantage of the tempo opportunities that Gin and Baku present in the game right now.
Sweet. And then I know you spent a lot of time with the Tavern Brawl.
Well, I wouldn't say I spent a lot of time, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
By standards of this podcast, you spent a lot of time with the Tavern Brawl.
Yes. Well, apparently the internet spent a lot of time with it because this was the most positive response to a Tavern Brawl we've seen in a while. There are definitely Tavern Brawls out there that people really enjoy. Like the 2-card deck or whatever, right? Where you only pick 2 cards and then your whole deck is full of those. Like you can make these crazy kind of things happen. But what was really interesting about this one is, it was essentially like Garrett, you mentioned a cube in Magic where somebody like pre-makes a set that pulls from a bunch of sets. And then oftentimes what you do with that is you draft, like you play a limited format with it. But this was a constructed format. You could only use cards from Goblins and Gnomes, Grand Tournament, Witchwood, and Boomsday. So you get 4 expansions to pull from, which limits your card pool by quite a bit. But also, I mean, everyone else's is limited too. So, and then you just build a deck from those 4 expansions, and you play. It made me feel, and a lot of people said this on Reddit, was this feels like a fully fleshed out format that could just exist in the game, is to just have a limited card pool to select from, and then it could have its own separate ladder or something like that, and it could be a month-long ladder, and then you just rotate to some new sets the next month, and you kind of constantly have a fresh meta.
I think we've talked about this before, an arena option is rotating the available sets through the arena.
Yeah, we've definitely brought up that arena would be cool if you could, constantly be like moving those around, but that's because most of the time in Magic, you do see this as a limited format. It works just as a constructed format as well, though. Totally. I think though that if they want to do something like this, I would rather see not 4 expansions, maybe 6. Maybe I think you need a slightly larger card pool. But it was cool to have it pull the classic set out because that's what makes the decks all same. The sameness that people talk about is really just because, if it's a mage, I know that Frostbolt and Fireball are in there, right? If it's it used to be. If it's a druid, there's always going to be Wild Growth. If it's this, there's always going to be these cards that are always in there. And Rogue always has Backstab, always has Eviscerate, always has whatever, So when you pull those out, all of a sudden you're starting to use your brain a little bit and figure out what are the best options of the cards that are remaining. And
and then there would be no owls, no spellbreakers, no polymorphs, no hexes, no saps. You could actually play your super cool stuff.
Yeah. Then people would have to deal with it by playing their super cool stuff, and they'd have minion combat and stuff. It was just very interesting to see Blizzard dabble in this, because I've done it personally. Like we had a Dillionaire tournament where we picked, I remember it was like Karazhan and I think maybe got a Grand Tournament or something was in there. Anyway, it was really fun. The decks you made were really interesting. The problem is when you don't have enough expansions, you can't really build any themes because there's not enough to choose from. So the best theme is solid mid-range deck. That being said, if you were to do it with like six expansions, there's enough cards, you could probably find a theme somewhere in there. And it just makes it so that, without all the tools, it opens up new ideas. Like there's suddenly cards that would never see play because they're just weaker compared to, say, the classic set that now suddenly see play because they're just the strongest out of what I have, right? And in a way that feels like what you get, the feeling you get in Arena where you see cards you don't normally see. It was just really fun. And one of the only Tavern Brawls I ever just thought, I'll queue this again after my pack. I never do that.
What?
I know. Crazy.
Yeah, I think this is probably the strongest idea for a Tavern Brawl we've seen in a very long time. That being said, I didn't feel very pulled to play it, and what I'm about to say is going to sound like a criticism, but I promise it is a compliment. And it's that I looked at it, I'm like, I feel like there's a lot to learn when you are dealing with so many cards. It sounds like it turned out not to be the case, but when I first heard about what it was, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to kind of wrap my brain around what is good. How do you build a deck in this format? And Tavern Brawl only lasts 5 days. And that's,
I can see that. I also see that a lot of people probably never even clicked on it because at this point they're just beaten down from Tavern Brawl as not being that fun, so they just never even knew that it was happening.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is this is such a strong concept. Please look at it for a potential permanent format. Yeah, because this is the kind of thing I would like to stick around.
They got a lot of good feedback on it, so the thing is, like, at this point, I'm a little bit sketched out, saying, maybe they're just a testing ground for a thing, because the people have been saying that forever at Tavern Brawl. We've never seen one single thing become a format. So,
well, not a format. I mean, we've definitely traced lines back to mechanics. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've been for years now. It feels like saying, maybe we're testing a format. We just don't get new formats. New formats aren't a thing that come to Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Oh,
I hope
it's
that's
time.
Not the case.
It's time, Team 5.
Yeah, it is time. It is definitely time. The positive feedback, though, I know is something that they pay attention to, right? They go to Reddit and they read what people say. We could, so if they don't make it like a whole brand new format, maybe what they could do is they could do like a Brawliseum with these types of rules, right? Where, at least you get to feel like you're playing a competitive thing that matters, right? Like, you put your 150 gold in and then you play it and you try to get rewards, and it's like an interesting, and that actually breeds in essentially a meta. Like, you do get a meta here, but the metas in Tavern Brawl where the reward is one pack are often defined by people just trying to get their pack really quick and get out. They're not defined by people actually trying to tinker and figure out what the best stuff is. Whereas if you had a Brawliseum of it, you would see that. Yeah. Like, you get in Brawliseum, it's funny, you'd think that it would essentially just mirror ladder, because like, I just want to play the best deck. But what ends up happening is you get this weird, crazy meta where people are like, I want to try this deck. And, like, you get all this weird stuff, and it actually ends up opening it up more to like meme things than you ever see on ladder, because it's one run, 150 gold, and then you're done. It's not like I tanked my ranking playing this deck, So in a way, it's like that opens up even more. And that, like, if we just had Brawliseum all the time instead of ladder, I'd probably never play ladder. I just Brawliseum all day long.
Yeah, I've never really. I feel like you hit the nail on the head there. I've never really thought about the lack of ladder anxiety to something like Brawliseum. I mean, there's the currency involved with buying into it that might be a bit of a deterrent, but I could have a terrible run on like 10 Brawliseums, but if my 11th one is stellar, that's all anyone cares about. Whereas in ladder, if I had like equally the same kind of terrible luck, I'd be a lot lower, or at least, bottomed out at my my
rank floors.
My rank floor. Yeah, thank God for rank floors. So that's a good point.
Well, you also you're going to get a pack, so the currency portion of it doesn't feel like a big gate that you
Yeah,
have
you're
to,
really.
like,
Yeah, it feels like you're betting like 50 gold.
yeah, like, I know I'm gonna get 100 gold worth out of this thing, and it's just a cool way to kind of like grind up and have a good time. And you're right, like, yeah, I could go 0-3 with 5 meme decks and be like, yeah, it's fine. I was meme decking. I didn't expect to do anything, and then you're like, one of your memes actually gets you 8 or something like that. And you're like, hey, look at what I did. Like I made this cool thing that went 8 wins, and you feel happy.
Yep.
And Hearthstone should make you feel happy.
It should. And the desire to experiment. Just like college.
Yeah.
All
dude.
right, let's.
I was like, is he going to go there? Oh, yep.
I saw the look in your eyes, Joss. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make the joke now. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. You know what else is going to happen? We're going to talk about Hearthstone news because there's more to talk about than just a Tavern Brawl.
Good news, everyone!
I smack my mic like a noob. HCT Europe Winter Playoffs have happened, and there's some different decks going on in here.
Yeah, there's actually some really interesting stuff that I don't think anybody saw coming. I know Firebat was very intrigued by a lot of, like, I was watching some of his stream, and he was basically pulling up all the weird decks that nobody saw coming and was playing them on ladder, and they were actually all pretty decent. We have our 4 qualifiers for, well, they qualify for, I think they actually qualify for summer. Did I put winter here? I think it's summer championship.
No, it's winter. This is
really?
the winter championship. Yeah. So there's the
Okay.
winter championship, and then there's
This was the playoff, and then
Yeah.
and then there's the championship. Okay, because it was just kind of weird how the timing works. Like, we're not going to be in winter anymore when it actually.
Oh yeah,
happens.
no, it's really dumb.
Yeah.
Same, like this summer one was like in November. It's stupid.
Got it. Okay.
Well, it's also
but yeah,
going away.
There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of really cool decks out there, and our top 4 were Phaley, Bunny Hopper, Viper, and Thunder Up. I don't know Thunder Up at all. The rest of the
No,
names
that's-
I was familiar with.
That's a name I've literally never heard before. So I'm guessing he was probably a ladder grinder.
Yeah, I guess. I think he's from Turkey. So yeah. I don't know.
Well, but even
all
then,
the-
like doing the DreamHack tournaments and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
I
I
feel
don't know
like,
all the,
you know,
like,
if
the-
he was
the
doing
Turkey
DreamHacks, I would
food.
have seen him.
Yeah. But like the other guys, like maybe in HGG we would have seen him, but I don't even remember there seeing that
Yeah.
name. So did Turkey have a team? Probably. I don't know. It was a really fun tournament. It was very interesting though. There was some discussion on Reddit about control fatigue coming from this tournament, because there was a lot of control versus control games, right? Basically the only real mid-range decks that we saw were like a few even and odd paladins. There was obviously the Secret Hunter was probably the biggest one. That was, I think, the most popular deck in the entire tournament. And then Odd Rogue, I guess you could say. And then everything else was just like there was a few like even Shaman and stuff like that. But everything else was like there's Mechathune stuff and Odd Warriors and Malagos and Mechathune Druids and the Exodia Paladin and the Control There was just so much control.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember somebody posted a clip where I think it was Admirable and Soddle were doing the cast, and somebody hit face, and they were just like, "Oh my god, he hit face! He went face! Like, what are we seeing right now?" It was they got so freaking excited about it. But like the surprises weren't necessarily in the fact that there was a lot of control. The surprises were just in like some of the weird decks that we ended up seeing. So there was actually like a Tempo Shutterwalk Shaman. There was pure like Fatigue Priest, which I hadn't really seen. And then I guess what's that?
APM Priest.
Oh, there was one APM Priest. Or no, two APM Priests, I think. Yeah, in the whole damn tournament, which was 80 people, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Swiss part at all.
No, neither did I.
I just watched the top 8 or whatever, the 2 final groups. And it was I don't know, it was really fun. I enjoy the competitive meta a lot right now. Like I said last week, I enjoy the ladder meta a lot, but like I just feel like there are definitely these games where it goes on forever and it's just like value versus value, and it's like, oh my god, we're gonna be here for ages. But like when you're watching 2 really good players do that and listening to 2 casters with a lot of knowledge talk about it, I don't know. There's just a lot of interesting. Like just every turn has an interesting decision, and I don't mind the rope every turn when there's a lot of decision making going on. I don't like the rope on turn 1, 2, 3, 4 when it's like I got one thing to do. But when we're like talking like both players have been at 10 mana for a long time, and there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of dynamics. I don't mind that at all. It's like what makes football kind of interesting to I think a lot of American fans. That makes it uninteresting maybe to like European fans who just like soccer, like their football. It's like there's a stop and then some strategy. You know what I mean? And then a thing happens, and then there's some strategy, and then a thing happens. You know what I mean? So it's like you have time to kind of digest what you think the next move ought to be as the viewer. And I think that's quite interesting, especially for a game like Hearthstone. That's what I want to be doing, right? I want to be sitting there thinking what I would do. And then be like, oh my God, he did something totally different. But that actually was way cooler. Now that I think about it, that kind of thing. This tournament was full of that.
I mean, I used to get very excited about control versus control when it was rare, but I can understand not wanting to see it multiple games in a row.
Sure.
Well, it can be super fatiguing for the players, right? Like if you're in a tournament in a control meta, that's a whole lot more exhausting than playing in a tournament with a more aggressive, faster meta. But I think there's a lot of different control decks now, which I think is what is so interesting to watch, is that they might both be trying to do the same thing, but they're doing it in different ways versus like before where it would be like just control warrior mirror after control warrior mirror that was like snooze fest. It's like now it might be control versus control, but they're two totally different classes doing different stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that there's multiple control decks, not just this one control deck. But then, yeah, like you get Chalky versus, what was it, Terrence in a control warrior matchup, and then they both just armor up passing.
I mean, that was
2 hours later.
I mean, that was rad at the time because we weren't used to seeing it. But oh my God, yeah, if every game at that particular DreamHack was warrior versus warrior, no thank you.
What you got here was you got a lot of like control, like odd warrior versus hunter that had a Rexar going and things like that. And it was just both players know that the game plan is tricky from here, and they have to make like the right move every single turn, because it may look at the end like the one play they made last before they died was the misplay, but it might have been the one 15 turns ago that was the misplay. And that kind of stuff is super tricky and fatiguing to watch if you're not into it, like definitely. And I don't know if it's necessarily the most healthy thing for the game from an esports like viewing perspective going forward. Like you don't want this to always be the norm, but I don't know, if we have metas like this for a while and then they changed, I'm okay with it. I do think though that what you get is you generally get like, it'll be like this because a lot of the players were trying to maybe attack a certain strategy, but then everybody was trying to attack the strategy. So then the next time someone's going to attack this strategy, and you'll see.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see this weekend when NA is played, what they learn from, which is always what I love when they do these playoffs, like one week after another. So usually EU, NA, and then APAC. It's always really interesting to watch the meta evolve over those 3 tournaments and then set up like the final seasonal championship. So I am really excited for NA this weekend. I think it's going to be cool. And I think it's also really interesting. The guys that qualified out of Europe, Bunny Hopper and Viper, have both already locked in the world championship slots. They did that back in, I guess it was the first tournament of the year. So spring.
Yeah, they were already qualified. So
yeah, they've already qualified. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens in the actual seasonal championship for winter. And if they get their spots, then we actually get like a whole other tournament, because they take the people who finished 5 to 8 and make them do like another playoff tournament. So
interesting. I thought it just went to like point earners after that or something, but okay. So they actually play out another little mini tournament. Yeah,
it's very specifically for the championships to qualify for the like world championships. So the seasonal to qualify for worlds, those 4 spots, they do another playoff. They don't just take it to points or anything like that. So
when do we get the deck lists for the NA thing? Do they come out? They got to come out pretty soon, right?
I think it'll probably be tomorrow. I think. Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually a couple days beforehand.
Yeah, I'm very excited to check them out. But if you want to see, we got a link in the show notes here, so you can check out every single deck list from every single player. You know what's funny is that you can actually now, like, this is one, I guess, advantage of Blizzard not having a tournament mode in their game, is that you can go to Battlefy and you can literally look at like the Swiss rounds one by one and then see all their deck lists and bans and everything from every single round. So if you're super nerdy about this stuff, there's actually like a complete breakdown of the entire tournament because it's on Battlefy. And if it was in the client, I guess they would then have to export all that data somewhere. So that's like the one advantage of there not being a tournament mode.
That's the glass half full way to look at it.
Yeah, it's like the baseball card of Hearthstone esports. It's like if I want to look at all the information. But yeah, and also there's some people, I should actually throw this link up too. There was another link I found of the unique deck list that we saw in the winter playoffs. And one of them was like a Death Rattle Mech Hunter. You had the Shutterwalk Shaman that Viper actually had, which is like a tempo Shutterwalk Shaman, like primordial drakes and stuff. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And there was a Dead Man's Hand Warrior that Swids brought. And there was actually a Discard Warlock in there. So cool.
God bless him. Also explains why I saw a Discard Warlock this week.
All right, here we go. Boom. There you go. Unique deck list there. It's in the show notes now as well. So
listeners at home, if you've never looked up the show notes, go to amove.tv, look for the Angry Chicken post for the episode number. This would be 297. Click on it, scroll all the way down to the bottom. It's a Google Docs link. Go check it out. Not out of esports yet because the Wild Open is also gearing up.
Yeah, basically it's in its qualifying stage right now. So if you are listening to this show right now and you hadn't heard about this, it's not too late. You just have to finish top 100 on the Wild ladder this season. And if you do that, then you get to go in February. There's going to be a playoff with amongst all the people who qualified in your region. So it'll be 100 players that can do it. And then 2 players from each region will then make it to the finals. And then they will have the finals. So I think it's going to be a total of 8 players in the finals. And I think China's just doing something different because they always do something different. They're just doing like pure ladder qualifications or something. Like just the number 1 and 2 guy from the ladder. They're not even having like a playoff. But yeah, then once you get there, then this will be actually streamed on February 23rd, the finals of this. And we'll see if we get some of the familiar Wild names actually at the top 8 there. In the last one, we did see a lot of familiar names. So, well, if you pay attention to the Wild anyway, we saw some familiar names. But this is just open to anybody. So if you think you got the chops, you think you can pull out some big priest and take it to a top 100, just go for it, man. By the way, it was funny. If you read the copy that they posted, they say at the top, they say something like, hold on, let me pull it up real quick. They're like, do you want to polish up those totem golems and grab a seat by the hearth with Barnes and Reno Jackson? Oh yeah, it doesn't sound like there's any plans to do anything about Barnes and Wild anytime soon. Which, yeah, I don't know. It makes me a sad boy.
Yeah, dude, I think it would have hurt less if you actually twisted a knife in my side just then.
That's the one card where I'm like, man, if it just didn't come out on 4 or turn 3, we've like, well, I lose.
They've adjusted cards for Wild. Why is Barnes the way he is?
I'm sure that it's because statistically they look at it and they go, yeah, but it doesn't win that much because even Shaman runs it over. But, it's still just really frustrating when you try to do anything else, right? Anything that isn't even Shaman. There has been some talk among some Wild players that the problem with Wild will forever and always be that unless you literally power creep the hell out of the cards, essentially you will get to a point where these decks are just always going to be the best decks forever and ever and ever because they were just the most powerful cards that ever came out. So it's like, yeah, and that's just a valid.
I mean, we see pretty slow movement in the meta in Magic formats that are similar.
Oh, and like Vintage and stuff.
Yeah. When you have access to that many cards,
sure.
A new expansion is a very small drop in a very large ocean.
There's oftentimes we talk to a player who plays, Vintage or Legacy, I guess is the other one. They'll be like, a new set comes out and they'll be like, well, there's one card that might make it in. Like
Yeah.
it might add something to this existing
And-
super powerhouse deck, but most of the time,
Yeah.
nothing really does.
On principle, I think that's healthy. Like I like that it makes sense. Standard should be the thing that's changing more rapidly.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
is more
Yeah.
impacted by expansions, and Wild should be a little bit more set in stone, with the obvious caveat of, hey, it's really cool that Hearthstone can make changes to its cards compared to something like Paper Magic, so why not leverage that, but I think wield it with restraint, which they certainly have been doing, but it's Barnes. Do something about Barnes, please.
Well, it
Yeah.
might be nice just to see one big sweeping balance kind of change to Wild just in general. Just go back, take a look at everything and go, okay, this needs to change and this needs to change. And now that we have a better idea of everything that's going to be in Wild, now that we even know that Wild's a format, maybe we just go back and take a look at everything all together and go, okay, this is like Barnes, too powerful. Reno, probably okay.
But see, like that's the problem, is that a card like Barnes doesn't show up on the radar as too powerful, because like I said, like that deck still just loses to aggro. What it is too swingy, right? It's too like either good or bad.
Well, whatever criteria.
Yeah.
Just
Like
kind
it's
of
the same thing.
smooth out the swinginess and the power level and the whatever. Just
Yeah.
take a
Like
look
when
at
they-
Wild,
when they had
solve the
the-
problems. Yeah.
When they had the Naga Sea Witch Giants thing, like there was counters to that deck, which were, kill them, so that when on turn 5, when they like fill the board with 8/8s, you're like, well, you're dead next turn. There's obviously a counter to that, but it just sucks because then it takes away the ability to do anything that's not countering that, right? It's just like I think that's really the crux of Wild, is you want there to be the ability to play, because they have talked about, we want it to be a place where you can go play Handlock if that's what your favorite deck always was, right? And you can't really do that because that's just gets destroyed by all these super refined, overly powerful decks, because everyone's figured out what the really good stuff is.
Which
So,
brings us back to formats. And wouldn't it be super cool if you could go in and select what year you wanted to play? Like, I want to play Year of the Mammoth meta.
But you can also have things like what Modern is in Magic, right? Where it's just essentially a larger card pool than Standard, but not the entire card pool. What is Modern? It's like the last 4 years or something like that. I can't exactly remember, but you still have like incredibly powerful decks, but it's something you can kind of keep up with. So that'd be an interesting thing in Hearthstone too. We're getting close where we just need that. I'd say we're there, me personally, but that's just me.
There's so many things that I feel like they haven't tried that I'm kind of out at a loss of what to like plant my flag in and just say this is what we need and we need it now. At this one, I'm just like, just try something. Just go for
there you
it.
go.
I don't care. Just show me something new that ain't a Tavern Brawl, that ain't gone in 5 days.
I'm with you, man. As long as something is tried, I'll be happy, even if it's not the perfect.
Yeah. And we still haven't talked about single player, and you know why? Because it's boring, and it's exactly the same as every other dungeon run we've had.
Yeah.
Shrines. Woo!
Well, we could talk about this survey, which really wanted to know what we thought about single player.
Yeah, dude, this survey scares the crap out of me, and not for the reason everyone on YouTube is fear-mongering and all that crap. Because there's a million videos that are like, Hearthstone esports being pulled, and they want to see how mad you're going to be when they pull it. And none of those videos actually mention the fact that they've already announced esports for 2019, and it has $2 million more involved in it than making it the biggest pot in the history of Hearthstone esports. So at the very least, yeah, maybe it will be pulled. Probably not going to be pulled this year.
Not this year, yeah.
Very unlikely.
Well, and even then, and so I put a link to an album that's full of a screenshot of every question that they asked in the survey. The survey's really long. The esports question was one question out of 50.
It's a choose your own adventure survey too. Like if you do certain things, you get certain questions to follow up on those. So
you didn't get
seems like they're just trying to delve a little deeper into a lot of the things. It does tell me though that they're considering a lot of things, but there are things that were omitted in that survey where I'm like, okay, so this is just off the table. Like this is just not like tournament mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there were no questions in there.
There was no what features do you want question at all. Like that just wasn't even there. So,
I feel like that.
I've given up. I've laid down my sword and shield on that one, I guess, for now.
Yeah, no, it's dead. It's real dead. But like I think the part that I guess maybe worries me is the kind of questions they ask. Like they went all the way from like the most super basic of questions, and I'm kind of like, do you not know anything about anything that your community wants at all? Like I don't know, it I thought it was kind of weird, some of the questions that they chose to include. I was like, it's not kind of obvious.
To me, man, it felt like it came off like a insecure significant other. Like, oh, do you still like me?
Yeah, because there was that one question about like your perception of Hearthstone. Like, is it on the way up? Is it staying the same, or is it getting worse, or something like that? I can't remember the exact wording they used, but I saw that and I'm like, wow, Hearthstone, you're getting a little needy there.
Yeah, actually, it's funny enough. I give Katie this survey every year on our anniversary. I'm just like, hey.
Do you think we're on our way up?
Are we on our way up, or are we staying the same?
What features would you like me to adopt in the next year?
Yeah.
Would you like me to cook more, clean more?
Keep in mind that features you choose may cause other features to become obsolete.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, if I'm going to do more foot rubs, that means I'm not going to be cleaning the gutters this year.
Yes, more.
Pick one.
As you can see on this line graph, the rate of foot rubs go up. The rate of socks being put away goes down.
Exactly. Yep. Also, the rate of me playing video games goes way through the roof.
Hope you like side quests and Red Dead. But
I didn't get the takeaway that some people got, which was, I think they're going to pull esports. I got the thing of how important is esports to your playtime, and that I think just feels different to me than how important is esports. Like I feel like what it meant more is, are we giving you too much esports? Are we giving you not enough esports? Is it something that makes you stick around in the game? You know, that kind of thing. And I don't think we're in any danger of them ever pulling it completely. I think they're trying to gauge what the proper tempo is for the esports thing. Cause we talked about it being last year too much. And that's, to me, like, if you pare it down, people might go, oh my God, they're paring it down. Eventually they're going to pare it down again. Then it's going to be 0. And it's like, I think it's just, we need to figure out what the right version of it is.
Yeah. And they still haven't given us the finer details of what is happening in 2019. We don't know when it's starting or how players are picked for that premier bracket. They didn't use the word league. I forget the word they did use, but I know it seemed like intentional. They were avoiding the word league. But with that in mind, it makes and everything else going on. I mentioned this on multiple podcasts. This even came up on our Heroes show because everyone's pointing to Heroes, being like, "Look what they did to HGC. That's why you should fear this survey."
Yeah,
and it's just like it's not. No, no person trying to get views. That's not the case. But it is a timing thing. Like, I get it. Like, this is a weird time for this particular survey with these particular questions to come out because everyone's a little shell-shocked with all of this dissenting opinions revolving around Blizzard and Activision at the moment.
Well, everyone's looking for more evidence to support their already formed
their
opinion.
view, or yeah.
They've already decided that Blizzard is a piece of crap company that's going down. It's going to die in a fire any moment now. So anything that comes out, it doesn't even matter. Like, any announcement that could be made about anything at this point is going to be, twisted into however they want to twist it. So
exactly. And that's,
I just don't even pay attention to all that noise. It's like anybody who's having a logical discussion about it, I will listen to them. But anybody who's not, like the Bungie thing leaving, it's like, okay, like that just probably made more sense to them as a company. Like that just, it's like, I don't look at that and go, oh, another thing, like another axe swing and
another
it's
knock
coming down. Like, it's just,
or whatever. Yeah.
Every company's got to make their own decisions based on what their needs are and what is best for them.
No, you're totally going to
companies merge together. Sometimes it doesn't make as much sense as they thought it might, and things happen. Right. So it's like, I look at this and I think Blizzard is trying their best to figure it out right now. Right. And to do the best by themselves and their player base and the games that they're making. And
especially now, so much of the team, like, I think they've kind of shored up the team since they had the big exodus last year with the creation of Second Dinner. So I feel like now they're just like, okay, we've got our team back into a good place. what will get the game into a good place. And so like I said, the number of questions on the survey was huge, and they covered like every possible Hearthstone topic except for tournament mode. But you know,
like card pack prices, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they talked about card packs, and do you feel like you're getting good value, and blah 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 blah. Like there was all kinds of stuff, and people very much cherry picked the one question that was, would you still play Hearthstone if there was no esports?
No esports. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a scary question, especially given recent events. Like, I understand it, but the thinking.
Well, but even then, like, it was like Dill said, it was kind of an oddly worded question, because I'm like, I do play more Hearthstone because of esports, because I see decks that pros are playing, and I try them out. But if there was no esports, I wouldn't stop playing Hearthstone, but I still love Hearthstone esports and want to see it. Like, I feel like there's another question to be asked there, which is like, how many hours of Hearthstone esports do you watch, or something that was kind of missing from the survey. So I think they were just trying to figure out like the relationship between tournaments and actual in-game playtime. But it was worded in an odd kind of way, I guess.
But okay, but how do you word that? Because they also had a question prior to it that was a little bit more of a gauge you based on like more or less. Like they asked, like, do you want more? Do you want less? Do you want the same? Whatever. And then they had that question. To me, that just felt like, okay, well, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this thing. Like, what if there was none? Would that make you not play? Like, I don't think that it means, that we're considering shelving it. It just means like, tell us like now we've talked about it in terms of like a scale of 1 to 10, but now like imagine the scale is just all or nothing. Like tell me, that kind of like gets to the bottom line, right? Is this that important to your play style or your playtime, or is it just not important at all? Like I need to know exactly where that like lands, because how many people are going to say yes and no is going to determine, I think, the cadence part of it a lot more than.
Oh, you can't say that word in front of me, dude. You
can't hard to gauge that, right?
You can't say cadence in front of me, man. It's too soon. It's too soon. You could have just said. You could have just asked, how much do you feel Hearthstone esports influences your playtime?
Yeah, but then you don't get. I think the idea here is that you don't get a truly honest answer. You get someone trying to come up with something, right? Whereas if you say, "Is it yes or no?" then you get more of a like, oh, well, let me imagine if there was just no esports, would I play? Like I think that's where the idea
is. Which is really funny, because I would answer that question in order to like get the point across that I want them to do esports, instead of saying like, yeah, I'm still very likely to play Hearthstone in the next 30 days, even if there are no tournaments. I would say I'm very unlikely to play Hearthstone.
Yeah, you really want the esports.
Even that's a total lie.
But, I mean, yeah, I'll tell you right now.
And they'll probably take that into consideration too.
Yeah, I've come to a hard truth, which is HGC is gone, and I'm still playing a lot of Heroes. So.
Right, and so if HCT was gone, I would still be playing a lot of Hearthstone, but I still want HCT to be a thing, so then I would answer that question dishonestly.
Yeah, I do think, though, that in Hearthstone, we have a much bigger... Like, let's just say the HCT just completely went away right now. I think we'd still have a lot of community tournaments, whereas Heroes did not have a lot of community tournaments at period, because
it was very much
it's teams and 5 players you got to support, and then it's a lot trickier to just run a tournament than a Hearthstone tournament. Hearthstone is much more built to last through a company deciding we're not going to do it officially anymore. Heroes, that's one of their biggest issues there, is that community tournaments, huh? That's hard. So
as a matter of fact, Team 5, by not giving us tournament mode, have bred the hardest bastards when it comes to making our own tournaments. We've been doing it on our own in a cave with a box of scraps for so long that if they did take HCT, we'd be like, hold my beer, let me show you how it's done.
Yeah. All right, we're going to start the Angry Chicken CT. Here we go.
Just there you go. I'm just going to I'm going to get 4 computers, because that's how many I need to record this damn thing, because the spectator mode still sucks eggs.
Sucks eggs?
Yeah,
Just sticking with the chicken theme, or is that actually like a
sucks eggs? You haven't heard that?
I
that's a thing.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to say suck balls, but now we're here. So thanks, Jocelyn.
It's kind of basically what that is. Yeah,
oh,
it's a way to say.
So thanks, Jocelyn. I appreciate you for getting us to this situation where I have to pivot into my serious point, which I think at the beginning of this when I introed it, I did say this survey does concern me, but not for the same reasons as what I'm seeing around the web. And the reason this does concern me is actually because there are quite a few questions about single-player content in here, and also just other game modes in Hearthstone in general. And, you know, I'm not going to get into specifics, but they all had varying degrees of how valuable do you find X mode of this game. And my concern is that, say these surveys come back with answers to those questions that are predominantly indifferent or negative, I hope they don't look at that and go, all right, time to cut funding to single-player modes. What I want them to take it for that is like, hey, maybe we should stop making the same single-player mode 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or if we do cut down on single player mode, let's divert engineering time to something more valuable to the player base.
Maybe.
Not just cut it.
Maybe. I always hesitate to talk about that because I have no idea how that actually functions.
I mean, it's true. Like, yeah, I get the sense that a lot of the single player mode content that we have now is taking some existing card design that wouldn't have worked for the actual expansion, moving it over to that, and then, you know, fiddling with it a little bit, and not necessarily like what we had originally with the raid stuff, where it's like you need a whole team of people like building that from the ground floor up each time. Seems a little bit more like we could now just fit the pieces in each expansion.
Yeah.
You know,
or milk a cow, you know, either way.
Or milk a cow, either one. Yeah. People who are listening to this in audio form have no idea what that's.
There's a lot of fantastic pantomiming happening if you're listening on the download.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's I don't know. I think it's good to ask about it because it's a chance for me to tell them like, hey man, yeah, when you just give me the same thing with a slightly different package, or actually the same package with a slightly different like wrapping paper, you know, it's like I'm not going to get into that. So
yeah,
either do something with it cool, or let's just stop that and do something that actually matters to us.
Yeah,
there's a chance for us to tell them that. Not like we don't. I mean, we do on this show. People do on Reddit, but sometimes that can become like an echo chamber and not quality information. And that's what I think they're looking for here.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious kind of what brought it on, because they've got to be able to. I'm sure they have these statistics internally. You know, it's like, I don't know. Did playtime for the most recent single player take a dive off a cliff? I mean, we know views for Hearthstone have been down a little bit. It's not a mass exodus, but I believe 2018 was the weakest year for viewership. Which I just look at. And
there's several reasons for that, I think, though, that aren't just Hearthstone or whatever. They're just like some popular streamers moved to other games and things like that.
Right.
I mean, we already talked about how much esports, like it was too much, too many tour stops, too overwhelming. There was some viewer fatigue there. So
it needs to feel special when it happens. Not
exactly.
It's like, oh, Hearthstone's on again? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the game's been out for a while too. Like we're very far from launch at this point.
Blizzard has to feel good though about just like all the hype around Artifact just being a whole bunch of hot air. Like they have to feel pretty solid about their position in the space.
Oh, it's World of Warcraft all over again, man. It's like Rift. Yeah. It's gonna kill World of Warcraft. Nope, never mind. Warhammer. It's gonna kill World of. Oh shit, we're already down.
Definitely this one.
Star Wars: The Old Republic. We're still limping along, guys.
Yeah. Like Huntball Bros. I'm still playing it.
For the record, I love that MMO very deeply. It's a fantastic game.
It's one that I always want to jump into and revisit again. But yeah, no, it's. I think we're kind of at that place where Hearthstone just kind of knows. Okay, look, our spot is pretty solid, but let's just make sure, you know, that the number one spot here in this CCG spot is a profitable one for everybody involved, and not one that's like, yeah, the best one is still not doing that great, right? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where Hearthstone needs to be focused. I want to see a card game come in and really push them, though, for sure.
I do too.
I think that is important.
I do too. I mean, I don't know. I really enjoy Magic Arena. I just wish I had more time to play it. But
to me, like Magic Arena is just that's Magic, and Magic was already there, and it's not really going to pull away players. the same way that like if another game it was similar to Hearthstone, like which has been tried, like we've seen like Shadowverse and all this kind of stuff, where they're super similar and they don't seem to really pull people away. They get people to kind of like, I also play that is kind of what it ends up becoming. So
yeah. Well, you know what's next now is we need a Star Wars card game to come along, and the circle will be complete of competing.
What a Marvel mobile card game.
Oh yeah, what about a Marvel mobile card game? That could be. You know,
I know
you might be onto something there, Dills.
I know that you guys are kind of joking around and poking fun or whatever, but that might be it, because I feel like that's what pulled a lot of people into Hearthstone originally, is that it was based on World of Warcraft characters that everybody knew and loved already. And then they were like, oh, hey, and this game is super fun too. So now that people like card games, maybe what we need is an established property like something like Star Wars or Harry Potter or Marvel or whatever, something that already has characters everybody loves made into a card game.
Yep.
Maybe.
Because it definitely felt cool when you came over and you're like, look, I'm Gul'dan. Oh my God. You know?
And now I'm playing Sylvanas and I summon Ragnaros, and like that was all super cool.
Yeah, all the times I watched Sylvanas summon Ragnaros. It was very canon. It's very canon.
That's not what she does in the World of Warcraft?
No, she's she
summons N'Zoth.
She plans the Wrathgate.
Spoiler alert.
she plans the Wrathgate, even though that was never explicitly said. But anyways, before we move on to Clone Priest, we want to thank our sponsor today, HelloFresh. They are back to feed you.
Yeah, they were back on my porch 3 days ago. I was very excited.
Dude, I blasted through a HelloFresh box last week. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny because when the box comes, I know my next 3 days are like taken care of, right? And then after the third day, I'm sad again. I'm like, oh no, now I got to figure something out. Boo.
Sometimes I even have leftovers, and I'm like, sweet, 4 days. It's awesome. It's wonderful. So if you're unfamiliar with HelloFresh, they are the meal kit delivery service that shows up right on your doorstep. You can be like Dills. Ready to cook food can show up on your doorstep. And Dills, you and I, we live in really hot states. It's insulated. It's very well packaged in recyclable packaging. It's nice and cold inside, even when I like forget it's coming, and then I like come home late at night and I'm whistling. I'm like, oh God, there's fresh food on my doorstep. Oh, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's freezing in here. They do a really good job. And you also have plans to choose from. There's 3 plans. There's the classic plan, which is what I'm on for you meat eaters out there. There's also the veggie plan and the family plan if you need to make food for a lot of people. More than just me and Katie after she's done filling out her survey that I give her every year. You know, stuff like that. You can also, my mic is screwing up in case anyone wonders why I'm stuttering. I can't hear myself. Yay.
We hear you just fine.
Good.
Yay,
Oh, it's working again.
Great.
Thank you for talking. Now I know it's working. You can also feel confident when cooking with HelloFresh because the recipes are simple and they're outlined with pictures and step-by-step instructions, which I have sang the praises of before because I am a terrible, terrible cook.
The pictures of the steps are awesome because it's even like tells me how big to chop things, which I always suck at.
Yeah, that's when you're not like a person who cooks all the time. They're like, okay, chop it in this fashion. You're like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, like
what does that mean?
What's the difference between finely chopped and diced? I don't know.
Yeah. Don't talk to me about rosemary. I'm not good at it.
Oh yeah, no, pulling the rosemary off of the stems, that's tricky.
Oh, I can pull it off just fine, but then I just take the cutting board and I give it to Katie because she's like, go away, you're terrible at this, and then she dices up the rosemary.
By the way, I learned a valuable lesson about cutting onions on this last one. Is that if you just use a really, really sharp knife, you get no eye problems. Like you don't get the teary eyes. I didn't know that.
Never bother me.
Well, maybe you're always using a really sharp knife.
Maybe.
Yeah, but like, so I just got like a new set of knives. They're really sharp, like scary, dangerous sharp, but actually less dangerous for cooking. But yeah, I was like chopping them up, and I'm just like waiting to get the eye.
Waiting for the tears.
Nothing happened ever. It was great. So anybody out there, if you have problems with that, just sharpen the hell out of your knives.
Yeah. It's great. I use HelloFresh a lot. It helps you get out of the recipe rut. I forgot how much I love making fajitas, and fajitas showed up at my door ready to cook. They had you bake the cheese into the shell this time. I've never done that before.
What?
That was dope.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, they were like, put your shells down on your big pan, put the cheese on top, put it in the oven for like just 2 minutes. Even keep an eye on it because it's cheese. And,
I didn't do that though. I did it. I after everything was done, I put the tortillas in the pan that had all the like seasoning and juice and oil and stuff.
Ooh.
I cooked them in that.
I mean, you can improvise too. There's nothing stopping you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do what you want, man.
The instructions don't
These are all
go.
just suggestions. Like the spaghetti one this time, I had made it before. I didn't use the recipe at all. I just remembered, okay, I'm making ragu. I'm making spaghetti. I know how to do this. And I just threw everything in there. It was great.
Yep. So check them out and use the TAC60 code while you're at it because you can get a total of $60 off. $20 off your first 3 boxes when you go to HelloFresh.com/TAC60 and enter the code TAC60 at checkout. It's like receiving 6 meals for free. It's like 50% off, 3 boxes. Go check it out. HelloFresh.com.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, man.
Well, no, this is a free dinner.
6 free dinners, but you can eat them for lunch.
I was about to say, like Dill's improvising with his tortillas, there's nothing stopping you from cooking this in the middle of the day. I mean, you're an adult. Anyways, check them out. HelloFresh.com/TAC60. Enter the code TAC60 at checkout. Get $60 off your first 3 boxes. Go check them out. And now let's talk about Clone Priest.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
Dills, I feel like you've been wanting to do this one for a while.
Yeah, I think Jocelyn was playing a lot of this before we discussed putting this one into our strategy section as well. It's been a deck for a while. I think it's just kind of hit a moment in the meta where it's at its strongest that it's been. And that's the Cloning Gallery Priest. When we first saw Zarek's Cloning Gallery in Boom's Day, I think we were all we were intrigued, but we were skeptical, right?
Yes.
We were like,
Well,
okay.
it's 9 mana,
really
right?
do
For a
it.
bunch of 1/1s. That seems like not very good.
Yeah, 9 mana for 7 1/1s.
If there's even 7 minions left in your deck,
Yeah.
sometimes you could just get 2 or 3 1/1s, which has
Sure.
definitely happened to me.
Oh yeah. But it's because of the existence of Velen and Malagos that this is just an incredibly strong proposition. So also, of course, Radiant Elementals matter a lot because you can play it on 9, get the 2 Radiant Elementals, and then you get a Velen and a Malagos, and then you got free 20 damage Mind Blast or 40 damage or whatever it is, right? I think they're 20 at that point, unless you
They're
get
20, yeah.
So yeah, you're dealing 40 damage all of a sudden on turn 9, and that actually happens more often than I expected it to. I think I was thinking, most of the time the draws aren't going to line up right and everything's going to kind of suck. But no, I've definitely in slower matchups, I just keep the Zarek's Cloning Gallery and I just try not to. I just hope. I actually tried to actively not draw as much because then I hope that I don't draw Velen and Malagos, right? So I just kind of sit there and do other things outside of drawing, and by the way, this deck doesn't feature a whole lot of draw anyway, which is kind of weird.
No.
Like you would think that it would, but I think actually the only pure draw in most of the versions is just the Power Word Shields. And a lot of them don't even have that. So the one that we're showing on stream doesn't have them.
Yeah,
right?
so the first deck list we have up, if you're watching, like you're getting the visual aids on YouTube or on twitch.tv, this is the most popular version on Nature's Free Play right now, and it does not have Power Word Shields. We're going to be going back and forth. We're also going to be talking about this deck list, which is the highest win rate version of a Clone Priest that has over 10,000 games logged.
Yeah, so I went through and I just kind of figured out. So the one that we're showing has like 110,000 games logged or something. So it's like by far the most popular version. But I notice a lot of times on HS Replay, the most popular version is not necessarily the best version. It's just the first one that came along. And then it is the one that now when people look up HS Replay, they find it. And so that's the one that kind of just, it gains steam whether or not it's the best version of the deck or not.
Yeah, well, folks, a lot of players seem to have this habit of leaving decks just sitting. We're like, I built it, it's there. I'm never gonna mess with it.
That's the one that I use. Yeah.
Justin, do we mention this after BlizzCon? We didn't really talk much about how we got to hang out with some X Team 5 folk, but we did hear from one of them that on average, I think most players in Hearthstone, at least last they knew, like had 3 decks in their deck slots because adding deck slots came up in conversation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense though, because I think there's a lot of players who don't have big collections, right? So they can't build that many decks. And then, yeah, I would assume I'm definitely in the minority because I always have all 18 slots completely full. Every time I need to make a new one, I have to delete an old one. It's crazy.
I'm usually doing that too, and I don't even play Wild, so
yeah. So this one also is running the single Obsidian statue, the Lich King. So it's the one it's like a little bit more. It can win without just the combo, right? It can also win by just threat generation, but the combo is very prevalent as well.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of wins that I got with the deck were like Lyra wins. In a lot of cases where you just get like a big Lyra turn and just get so much value from that, and then bringing back Lyra and getting more value again later. So there's multiple ways to win with this version of the deck, and I would say this is the basic one, right? This one also has the Shadow Essences, which I think was one of the first things people looked at. Like, okay, this is a way to get out one of these big minions, right? If you get the Obsidian statue with a Shadow Essence against like an aggro deck, you just win, right? Because not only you heal a bunch, but you also start killing off their guys and all that. But then there's like versions where people start thinking maybe Shadow Essence isn't the jam, and maybe I should try some different stuff. So that's why I put 3 versions of the deck in here, because there is a lot of like I would say this is the core, this is the basic version that will work for the most part. But there's different ways to think about this deck.
Yeah, I do very much enjoy the other one, which I'm going to pull up now, the one that has a little over 10,000 games logged. I like how lean it is, because you almost guarantee you're going to find the minions that you need.
Yeah, so Shadow Essence is never going to, like, first of all, it doesn't have the coin generating gargoyles, which I think a lot of people were like, what? How could you not have those? You need the coins, though, to do the combo at the end. It's
I thought this exact same thing, and then I realized how easy it is to get 2 Velens onto the board when your minion list is this stripped down.
Yeah.
Well, and when you have Vivid Nightmare, right?
Sure. Well, Vivid Nightmare, and also, just lesser diamond spellstones not pulling back things like gargoyles and stuff means that most of the time you are getting a Velen and a Malagos at that point. So this list is definitely stripped down as far as the minions that are concerned. You only have the Radiants, the 1 Ziliax, the Prophet Velen, the Malagos, and that's it.
That's it, yeah.
So you know that when you cast that Spellstone, you're getting one of each of those things, right? So at least if you can charge it up all the way. So more often you're going to be getting the minions you need, and that means that you'll be mind blasting and holy smiting them for a lot of damage, rather than, sometimes you get a bunch of gargoyles and some elementals and a blood mage down those, and you're like, crap, now what do I do? Or you get the Obsidian statue and a Lich King, you're like, cool, but I want to kill him. This is a lot more just based on that exact combo and that exact combo happening. This version, like you said, runs the Vivid Nightmare. So if you can Eternal Servitude a single like Velen, then you can make another Velen, and for 7 mana you now got double Velen on the board. Your Mind Blast at 20. So it's just I think this is a little bit more in line with what the deck's ideal situation is, and I prefer this version a lot. I think because we're going to talk one more about a Zalay version, which I think is geared towards like high legend grinds. I think this is the best version for most people to just play on the ladder at whatever rank you're at, right?
So this version that we've got on the screen right now, and I believe Zalay's version as well, both run Power Word Shield. And I found that I often, like, it is one of the only ways to draw in this deck, but I found I never had anything to put it on. And by the time I had a minion on the board, then I was like, okay, but I don't really want to shield anything because I've got 8 or 9 cards in my hand. Like, now I don't really want to or need to draw. So could that be a slot that you could kind of put something else in potentially?
It probably would be the slot that I would say, yeah, that's the one. That and in this one, you definitely want the Shadow Essences because it's the 4 minions, so it's always going to pull like something quality. But to me, I think the Power Word Shield is still just good because of the times you get Radiant Elemental Power Word Shield on turn 2, and you can just kind of like run away from the aggro decks with just that 2/5 that gets you tons of value.
It's
I
the
think
only
just for that reason alone, it's worth it, right?
Yeah, it's the only real like hand fixing, because if you don't find your shadow visions and you don't have any of your other like res spells or minion summoning spells, you're up a creek.
Well, it's got Mass Dispel as well for one more actual just draw a card from my deck effect.
Yeah,
but I'd say the other thing about Powered Shield is that this version's not running the Lyra, so you're not generating as many like extra random spells. So you do need to like get to, your Mind Blast, your Shadow Visions, like your things like that. To actually get. So I think in this version it's okay. I definitely think in the first version we saw it wasn't running it. In that version you probably don't want it at all, because it's just that version wants to just kind of play stuff as it gets it and then do its thing, where it's like the game can play out differently in a lot of ways. This deck is more trying to have the game play out in this one way every time, and to do that you do need some draw, right? So but I think you are correct. Like there's a lot of times where like I would get rid of Powered Shield if I didn't have Radiant Elemental in my opening hand. I think I would just always mulligan it away. It's a card that you kind of just want to draw later on, and then you can use it to pump your Spellstones and things like that. So it's definitely not as important in your, and that's weird because Powered Shield is historically one of those cards that you're like, I always keep this, right?
Yeah.
It's always like I have it.
I get my cleric with my shield and I'm good to go.
Exactly. But that's not how it works anymore. So that's a good point that you bring up, because I'm sure a lot of other players are running into that problem. This deck does also have the issue where you, especially in the Lyra version, your hand is just full and you're just like, oh god.
Oh my god, I had Lyra and Lich King on board and I was like, what do I even do now? Like I can't even dump my hand because it's all spells and Lyra's just going to replace them, and then Lich King's going to give me something at the end of my turn. Dang it.
Yeah. This version probably won't have that problem as often because, like I said, there's only those 4 minions, so you're not generating coins, you're not generating spells with Lyra. So it's if that seems to be like a big sticking point for you and it's a problem, try this version out. Just a little bit of draw, but just the minion package is so lean.
Yeah, I didn't really run into hand size issue with this particular list.
No, not with this one.
Not with this list, yeah.
Yeah, the other one for sure. But then the last version that I posted is the Zalay list, because he got rank 1 with it. And like I said, I think this one is geared a little more towards playing at the very top of the legend ladder.
I tried this lower down and it was terrible.
I think this is also a much trickier version to play. I think he's got more of a game plan built around it, and he understands what he's trying to do with it. And it's not an obvious game plan that like you can just plug in and say, okay, go. It's like it suits what he's trying to do at the level of ladder he's trying to play at. But I watched him play a lot of this list, and it was kind of interesting to note like how important things like the Grizzly were, because he would play a lot more defensive and do a lot more like threat generation type things rather than always pure combo. Because when you're running the Shadow Reaper Anduin, towards the end of the game, you can ping them down enough that you don't need like the full combo. You just need, 10, 15 damage, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of why he ended up moving towards this as a list. So he always talks about the importance of, if you have one of the 5 drops in your opening hand, you keep that. So the Witchwood Grizzly or the Ziliax or the Lyra. And then basically you're looking for gargoyles, radiant elementals, that kind of stuff. And then it's just you kind of play out a slower game plan, but he's playing against more control decks, I think, at the top of the ladder. So yeah, it's this one. Try at your own risk, but know that this deck is capable of getting ranked number 1, and he did it. So it's worth talking about. I think it's another take on the other versions, but it's in a really good spot right now. It definitely sucks against some of the really fast tempo aggro style decks. So like even Shaman is a struggle, because it's like there's games where you're gonna feel like, oh my god, I have nothing to do, I'm just doing nothing, and that can be frustrating. So if you don't have patience, probably not the deck for you. But if you like interesting games that you have to make a lot of tough decisions and you always kind of have a chance to win against about everything, this is a very, very cool deck right now in the meta.
I dig it. It's the most I've liked a deck that kind of feels a little like Solitaire.
It feels less like Solitaire than I think the Solitaire decks, though, because of the fact that in those decks all you do is spend like the first 8 turns just trying to draw your entire deck. This deck spends the first like 8 or 9 turns trying to interact with what you're doing and biding its time. And so a lot less of it is like Loot Hoarder, Novice Engineer, Acolyte of Pain, like where it's like all I'm doing is drawing. And those are like the pure solitaire decks, right? Like the Mechathune Priest. But you're right, it's still got that feel to it where you're like, I know what I'm going for. I know what I'm eventually going to do. I just need to give myself the time to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal, because I know like you mentioned even Shaman, and obviously we've still got Warlocks around with their 8/8. So what do you do when you get an 8/8 dropped on you on turn 3 to 5?
Yeah, it's tricky. Hopefully Mass Hysteria or Psychic Scream will deal with them. But
even then I found like, Psychic Scream, I still have to wait till turn 7. So I'm like, okay, you hit me in the face 3 times while I'm waiting to Psychic Scream you.
It's another...
sometimes you just don't have a way to deal with it, but that's why I think the Shadow or Death has been making its way back into the deck. For a long time, it was not in there. I think early on they were running 1 Pain, 1 Death. Now we've cut the Pain. We're just running the Death.
Yeah, because in the first the top version on HS Replay, well, and that's running Death as well too.
One
so never
death,
mind. Yeah. So all the versions of these decks, like if you took the Death out, you still have ways to deal with wider boards, but you don't have ways to deal with bombs.
Yeah, so like the wider boards, you Mass Hysteria, you Psychic Scream, you Spirit Lash, but yeah, it's like that single giant minion was always a problem for this deck, so that's why the Death has made its way back in. It's also why I think Zalay was like, I got to put the DK Anduin in this deck because at certain points, I just need ways to kill a few big minions. And that generally does it. I guess, most of the time, in my experience, you Shadow Essence and hope. But yeah, it's definitely one weakness of the deck for sure. There's no like solid answer to it other than you just hope you have the Mass Hysterias and the Psychic Screams available to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just heal and get low and then hope this. Like I definitely found with this deck, I have been in situations where I'm like, I don't see how I'm going to win this game. And then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, I'm at full health again and I'm about to kill him. That's crazy.
Yeah, I find my health total is very like up and down with this deck.
Swinging,
it's like I go very, very low, but then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm back up to 30 again. And because
one cloning gallery plus a Spirit Lash, that's generally full health. So it's like a Reno. It's like a very expensive Reno.
Hey, when you can't play Reno, you got to find a way.
But I definitely say for people who are looking for something does take some patience, but it's going to have a lot of interesting decisions to make. Okay, so Odd Warrior was kind of thought of as an unwinnable matchup for this deck for a long time, but now I look at some versions of it and they're at 47% against Odd Warrior. So even though they get so much health, you're able to just generate enough threats that you can get them down low enough that eventually the combo will work. There's just a lot of cool interaction where you might look at a matchup and say this is an unwinnable matchup, but it actually is. You just have to adjust your game plan, and it's going to take probably a lot of experience with the deck, but a lot of players have proven that it's got game against almost everything. But like I said, there are some, like I think Rogues are its worst matchup overall. Just odd rogues.
I can see that because I find just rogues in general have so many ways to either put stuff on the board early, like Hench Clan thugs that kind of get out of control and you can't deal with, or they also have things like Balspine and Sap where it's just like, oh man,
sure.
I didn't even notice
my stuff.
I didn't even notice this before. Dill's this second one, the 10,000 games played list has an 82% win rate against Odd Warrior.
Whoa. Well, that makes sense because it's just so streamlined around getting massive damage combos, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So it's gonna happen sooner.
Yeah.
Gnarly. This is such a cool deck list. If you want to get the links to all of these, again, check out the show notes, amove.tv/TAC. Before we move to emails and wrap this show up, I want to thank those of you supporting us over at Patreon. If you dig the show, if you like what we're doing, you want to support the three of us, check out patreon.com/TAC. I also want to take a second to do a PSA that I do every once in a while. We currently have, I check every now and then. There's quite a few folks whose payment info is out of date. Totally normal. If, say, you went to a Target and now your debit card was compromised and they sent you a new one, that happens. That's happened to me more than once.
I was going to say, that sounds like a very personal story.
Yep. Yep, gas stations and Target for some reason. I love Target. They're not sponsoring, by the way. Hashtag not sponsored. I just shop there all the time. But yeah, it happens. So if you support anyone, even if it's not us on Patreon, just do us all a favor and check your payment info. If it's out of date, just update it. You're good to go. And we appreciate it. Appreciate you doing that. Anyways, some of our newer patrons that we want to thank this episode. We want to thank Paul C, JB, and Penny M. Everyone gave last initials today. Yeah. Thank you for the support, everyone. Patreon.com/TAC. And don't forget, if you're a patron or you become one very soon, you can vote on the format for the next Angriest Chicken Open Tournament. So go check that out as well.
February 9th. It'll be happening, but we can vote now. Figure out what we're going to play.
You have the power.
You want to play Wild? Well, let us know.
Yep.
There's at least one guy right now that wants to play Wild.
Really? Cool.
Rad. Poll just went up. All right.
I'm kind of hoping for it. To be honest, I'm rooting for like Wild Last Hero Standing. Let's just really change it up.
Yeah, just be totally crazy.
It would be interesting. Can we put for the next one when there's a vote? Can one of the options be we the hosts get to dictate the decks they have to play?
Ooh.
Sounds like extra work, but like here, you get a bunny hopper.
Mechathune open.
Yes.
Yes, everyone has to make Mechathune decks. Yes, do it.
Yes, I would love it. I love it. Wonderful. All right, let's take an email and wrap this episode up.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com, or if you're a patron, drop them in the question channel in the Discord. Dills, who's our question from today?
This comes from Rex Banner, who says, "Hello, Unchill Chickens. As an almost pure mobile player and avid listener of the show, I cringe at discussions that revolve around how Hearthstone, the mobile game, is holding back Hearthstone, the PC game. I'm a pretty serious player who frequently hits Dad Legend and plays mostly mobile, given that I am a dad and time in front of the PC is often hard to come by. I do want all the awesome things you guys talk about, tournament mode, limited formats, etc. However, I like having the game at my fingertips, but I also want to see the game grow like everyone else. I fear a split between the mobile version and PC version could hurt my experience. Can I have my cake and eat it too? Should I accept the fact that improving the diversity of the game may mean moving away from mobile? Do you think Blizzard would even do that?" Well, first of all, I don't think Blizzard is planning to do that at all. Our discussion mostly revolves around certain things that would be impossible on mobile, but to not have them at all is kind of a detriment to the game. So when you talk about things like new formats, that's not even part of the discussion at all. But there might be certain things like a tournament client might require that you have a little bit more of a beefy kind of download, right? That then doesn't make sense for a mobile client. So,
yeah, because I know a lot of people complain about the size of the mobile download anyway. So
it's already large, yeah.
It's
to add
rough.
something else on top of that, like a tournament client might be a little bit much. And also when we're talking about mobile, it's not usually that, we think that there's some difference between mobile players and PC players. It's just that when you're thinking about making a UI work on so many different smaller screen sizes, sometimes that does potentially hold back features. And so if that's the reason, which we're not even said, like we don't work for Blizzard, but if that's the reason that they're possibly opting not to do things is because they can't make it work on mobile, then that's where we're like, couldn't we please split the two? But I think Dills is right. I don't think that they're even looking at.
Yeah. And I don't think there's that many features being held back, to be honest. Like even something like the tournament client could mostly be done on their end and wouldn't even matter. It would just be they'd have to add in some sort of visual UI so you could see like where you are in the tournament, things like that, and that might be a struggle for them to design. But for the most part, I don't think there's that many features that are literally not available on mobile compared to PC. But there's things like we could have a more robust store on the PC version, and would that really be like hurting the mobile player? You could still log on to your Battle.net, purchase things, and open it, but it's kind of frustrating on a PC when I can't, like, there's this new, by the way, we talked about the Wild Open. There's this new Wild bundle that they're selling, right? Which is 10 packs from like all of the Wild sets. It's actually a pretty decent deal. It's like $20 or something like that. And then you get like, I think it's like 40 or 50 packs or something. It's like, it's a decent deal. but I had to go to the friggin' battle.net to do it rather than being able to just like do it in the store on the game. And it's like that kind of stuff. It's like the PC it fits my whole screen, got plenty of real estate. It'd be kind of nice if we could just open that kind of thing up, and that I don't think would hurt a mobile player's experience at all. It's just little things like that, like a couple extra options in the store and things. To me, it's just, I will say this. I understand that you're concerned, Rex Banner, but I also, if I choose to only play mobile, I don't then want to like hold back everybody else's experience because of what my choice is. And your choice makes sense for you. But I encourage people to not think of like stuff like this as, well, if I can't have it, no one should have it, right? Like that kind of feeling. And I'm not accusing you of that, but it's like it can come off that way. And I think it's better if like, okay, if I decide that I'm not going to play on PC and I'm going to play on mobile, if you just accept that might mean that there's a couple things that are just different from me. You're going to fireball your own face more often, right? And that's fine. But like, it's like I want everyone to have the best possible experience they can have. And I will then choose what experience makes more sense for me, right? I like that attitude more than don't do something if I can't have it, right? If something's good for the game, we should do it.
Yeah. And honestly, it's been a while since this has even come up on the show, but I feel like a lot of times it was just email responses to our hopes for new modes. It was, I don't know, I mean, I could be misremembering, but I don't think we broached that first. I think it just, for me, I think it became like a trigger response. I was just really sick of seeing people on Twitter and in emails go, oh, we can never have that because I'm mobile. And then I think one time I went, well, you know what? Screw mobile. Just burn it down. I don't need it. When in reality, I'm fine with it. I don't really play it all that often, but it's really rad that it exists. I just kind of got annoyed with that very reductive response to like 20-minute conversations on the podcast about cool things that could be added to the game.
I think honestly that's argument is probably used more than it's actually viable. There's probably a lot of things that
I think
don't need it. Yeah,
I don't think the Hearthstone client is as cripplingly difficult to build within as is the public like consciousness.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people make a lot of assumptions when it comes to this kind of stuff. And
I think some of those assumptions are driven by the fact that we haven't had a new format since Tavern Brawl, though, right? Like,
no, it's very true.
People are looking for reasons why that might be.
Yeah, they're based on like, okay, how come then? And maybe like Blizzard not giving us pure answers around, that kind of stuff. I will say though that the PC client, it could definitely use some work too. I've been having this thing where when I queue a game and I'm streaming, sometimes it boots me off of my internet. Like this happens with no other game, but like to find a player, like it actually makes my PC kind of freeze up for a second. I don't know if you guys have had this, but like you're on open too, the PC kind of seems like it's chugging a little bit to like get through its initial setup and like open the game phase. When it goes from like say opening the box to then presenting like the original, the opening UI. And then I queue a game and it's just like it chugs along, and I'll be playing games that are just so much more to me PC taxing that aren't doing these things to my PC. So it's just like, what is really going on here? And like, can we fix that before we get concerned about how every feature has to be PC and mobile? I think right now it's like just clean up our code a little bit.
Definitely have noticed the at least some issues with queuing. Like my thing will be spinning and then my cancel button will disappear, and then I'm like sitting there and 30 seconds later I'm still not in a game, and I'm like, this is a problem. And
when the cancel button disappears, that's when your match has been found.
Exactly. But then it never pops up and I'm like, oh man. And that happens to me once or twice like in a session. So
yeah, I think that's probably causing more issues than mobile. It's just the code is maybe not. It's the Unity and all sorts of factors that we're not privy to. So I'm not gonna venture to guess exactly why all that kind of stuff happens. But I think
I would say
there's a happy medium between making sure that the mobile experience is good and not penalizing players who play on PC. Right?
Yeah. I would say TLDR Rex. Don't worry about it. they haven't done it yet. I don't see any reason to expect that they're going to release some amazing, earth-shattering new format for PC, and then sorry, mobile players, we just couldn't make it work. I mean, I've been wrong before.
I don't.
If you had asked me, hey, will they cut HGC right before the new year, I would have said no. But I find that unlikely. But
well, and I mean, he's already playing Hearthstone on mobile, and he already likes Hearthstone on mobile. So if something came to PC, it's not like his mobile experience wouldn't change at all. It's just, you know,
That's true.
Yeah,
it's
like
an
it's not like
interesting
they would
thing.
take it away.
well,
It's an interesting, like human reaction to things, though. That when you know something exists and you can't do it, you feel like it got taken from you. Right?
I mean, it does sound absurd, right? I mean, where can we find ourselves in a world where something would be announced that you don't have to play, but then you're going to start petitions and go on crusades?
Never heard of such a thing.
No.
That sounds crazy, Garrett.
Yeah. By the way, hey, who's going to play Immortal? Anyone playing Diablo Immortal? Okay, cool. Good to know.
Oh, by the way, someone in chat did bring this up. If you are using an Android phone, you can now do the Hearthstone deck tracker on your Android phone.
I need to get a big screen then.
If you hear the sound of glass shattering, that's just my iPhone going out the window. Don't be alarmed.
So the reasoning behind it, it's kind of funny. So the iPhones are much more proprietary, right? Like to Apple stuff, and they don't like you can double tap your home button and go to another app that's still kind of in an open state, but they're not in the same open state as an Android would be, where literally you can have two apps open that are working together. And I've seen this with like Pokemon Go and the Pokemon app, right? There's an app where then you can like look for the CP, the combat power or whatever, the hidden combat power of your Pokemon. And in Android, it works automatically. In iPhone, you have to screenshot your Pokemon, then open the other app and put the screenshot in. Whereas on Android, they can both essentially be open at the same time and accessing each other's stuff.
That's a whole other level of Pokemon going.
Can I just say, Dills?
Yeah, when you're into it, right?
Dills, had I known you were going to stick with Pokemon Go this long, I would have been like, hey, man, spin-off show? The angry, the mild-mannered Poke Center? What are we going to call this?
Yeah, the angry Poke Hunter.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool what you can do with Android, and it does make me jealous because I use iPhone, but I like so many other things about the iPhone. I don't know. I'm hesitant, man, but at this point, I think the actual quality of the phones is caught up.
My Pixel's great.
Yeah, no, the quality of the phones is really caught up. There was a time when I think there was just too many other issues that weren't as caught up with the iPhone, but now it's not the case anymore.
Nah.
These friggin' things, these Android phones are insane.
I haven't loved my iPhone since the 4.
That I know.
The
it's
last
like
iPhone I loved.
Yeah. I think, you know, I'm like a month away from my upgrade, and I think we're going back to Android.
Pixel.
All right.
So to recap, you got a Walking Dead podcast today. You got a very long Hearthstone podcast, and you also got a Pokemon Go and a smartphone tech show.
That's right. We're giving you that's
you get so much bonus content here at the Angry Chicken. Yeah. So much bonus content. Yeah, you should go to patreon.com/TAC and reward our behavior.
A cooking show in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we gave you tips on cutting onions.
I have very sharp knives. Onions still make me cry. I don't know if the science checks out on that.
Apparently Hachikumo in chat says also well-ventilated area. Sharp knives, well-ventilated area.
I always thought it had something to do with them being cold or not, because I felt like anytime I cut like room temperature onions, just bawling my eyes out like I was watching a Pixar film. But pull them out of the fridge,
probably many tricks to this.
No problem. I don't know if there's any science to that. Someone out there who's actually a chef, let me know. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for the show. I don't know if you could tell by the fact that we're talking about anything except Hearthstone now. But that's going to do it. Thanks again to our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you're listening to the show, if you like what we're doing here at the Angry Chicken and you would like to support the podcast, the Patreon is the best way to do that. And like if you're sitting there thinking, oh, man, I want to give like $20 an episode, that's too much. It's fine. Like $1. It helps a lot. That is the average amount that is subscribed over on patreon.com/TAC, and it helps an absolute ton. So thank you, and consider chipping in over there. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H. and Sean C. by the way. Follow the show on Twitter at TAC Podcast to find out when we're going live, so you can join us over at twitch.tv/JMoveTV and tell us the names of cards that we forget in the chat room. We always very much appreciate that backup. But before we leave, Dills, you're doing all sorts of other stuff. Where can everybody find you?
Check me out on twitch.tv/WillieDills, Twitter at WillieDills, and if you're into wrestling, the show 1-900 Wrestling is where me and Lane and sometimes Justin Robert Young talk about the world of professional wrestling, and it's
1-900 Wrestling.
Yeah. By the way, I credited who said the onion thing. It was True Villain Manny. Sorry about that. My bad.
Happens. Jocelyn, what about you?
Find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. And I would say definitely go follow me on Twitch, because next week we've got a new raid opening. So Tuesdays and Sundays, I'm streaming our raid team pushing heroic battle of or for, depending on which Blizzard post you're looking at, Desaralor. So yeah, do go and check that out.
Gotta love consistency.
Oh, yeah. I like Battle of personally, because then you can say, I'm going to go raid bod tonight. So that makes me happy.
I love a good bod raid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Folks, you can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. All of the podcasts I do, including this one, are over at amove.tv. There's a new R2T2, which is my solo show. You can find by searching for R2-T2 out, where I talked even more about this survey and Mike Morheim leaving again and all sorts of other Blizzard going on. So I talked about that over there. Also, I'm once again accepting commissions for graphic design work. Head on over to nomoonart.com. There's a contact form on there. If you need some design work done, you can hit me up there. Also, I finally updated my portfolio. There's a ton of new stuff up. So if you want to go see more recent art that doesn't go all the way back to 2011, go check it out. Even though there is some old stuff up there still that I like, but a lot of new stuff. Go give it a look. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Best of luck in your Clone Priest games. And keep an eye on patreon.com/TAC for next week's deck list. Job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!